Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective. And today we are going to be looking at an X200T. This thing is almost a perfect square when you take in consideration the massive battery I have sticking out of the back of it. So for those of you not familiar, the T series, and you can tell by the unique hinge, is actually a tablet series computer. So on the bottom, we do have a latch because it is one of the older models. And inside, we have so many buttons. We got buttons and we got lights and we got fingerprint readers and more buttons and more lights. Oh no, we don't have a Think light on this. I forgot. That's one of the things that's missing. But this is a really cool particular unit. So let's start going through some of the features. You will notice that there is no trackpad on this. It is track point or nothing. There were a few that did ship, I think, but they didn't really start getting into the integrated touchpad down here until the X201, and I'm not even sure if it was available on the T model because of how much space you would have, considering that the latching mechanism, of course, is there as well. So in terms of the keyboard, it's pretty straightforward, 200, 201 fare, if you will. You've got your ThinkVantage button, your dedicated buttons up here. You've got your power button. We'll touch that in a bit. Up on the display, we have another series of buttons for essentially rotating the screen. That's what a good function of them are, as well as duplicating some of the buttons that we would have underneath. We also have an integrated fingerprint reader up in the display portion, which is an interesting place to put it. But if you want it accessible no matter what configuration the machine is in, you certainly couldn't have it down here. Now, one of the neat features, of course, is not only does the display rotate and fold down, but the people over at ThinkPad at the time thought about everything, including the latch. You push it through the other side, and then you can latch it down and proceed to still use your screen, which is a pretty cool little feature. So let's go ahead and do a quick tour of some of the ports and features of this particular unit, and then we shall open it up and talk a bit more about what we see there. So no real surprises with this one. USB 2, we've got a split headphone and microphone jack. We are rocking the 56K modem, of course. We have our drive bay, and this is new because, of course, if we have a touch display, we need to have a pen. So the pen comes with an eraser, a right-click button, and of course that very ThinkPad-ish red nubbin. Moving on over here, we have another USB 2.0, a massive battery on the back that goes along the whole edge. Kensington lock is on the left side, as well as the barrel plug. VGA, network, another USB, express card, and of course the oversized network on and off switch. So that is it in terms of ports, very similar to the 201 that I looked at earlier in the year. All right, let's grab our favorite set of screwdrivers, which one day I really need to get better ones, and see what is on the inside of this fellow. So this battery is of course quite unique, and I'm not 100% sure if this is actually the design of the catch or if this one is actually just broken. So we're going to push that using our screwdriver up and out, and as you can see, it's quite massive indeed. Moving right along, we have everything very clearly labeled. So let's go ahead and remove the RAM drive. Oh, can you tell I'm on vacation? The RAM. And inside this particular unit, we are rocking two pieces. One piece of 2 gig here, and I think that the other is also 2, but let's confirm that. So this particular unit is rocking that 4 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go ahead and disassemble our keyboard and everything else. And there's quite a few screws for that, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, I suppose, and remove the hard drive caddy. And once again, not a captive screw. So we'll move that over here and keep that together. Still have the same flip out tab. That one is a snug fit. Come on, out you get. There you go. Just a standard mechanical hard disk here, 250 gigs with the extra thick bumpers, so keep that in mind if you're buying parts for this. We have a series of keyboard screws. The first one is actually under the battery compartment, which is not surprising, so we'll loosen that one up. We have one over here for both the keyboard and the trackpad, and I guess they just started labeling these because they kind of knew that you couldn't take out one without the other, so they just started labeling them both. One thing I will say is because the screen is a touch screen, it is very thick. Of course, the technology is still, at this point, relatively new and quite niche. I don't imagine that a lot of these units were being purchased over the regular laptops because touch has not proliferated quite yet when this was released, which was, I think, around 2008. So we hadn't really started seeing even touchscreen smartphones for much more than a year at that point. So the technology in computers, while it had been around for a while, still wasn't exactly in high demand or mainstream. Open this up, do our keyboard wiggle. This one's actually pretty snug. This particular laptop doesn't really want to come apart. Alright, this one was a bit tricky to open, so I actually had to loosen this bottom corner first before the keyboard would come free. And now that we've finally gotten inside, I'm not so sure why this one caused so much trouble. It's probably just finicky, I guess. So let's go ahead and lift this up, which is nothing more than a plastic cover since it holds absolutely nothing. Put that off to the side. And it's pretty sparse in here, I gotta say. So it's pretty much the same as the 201 that we opened up earlier. The main difference, of course, is the CPU in this one is an L9600 Core 2 Duo. So still pretty quick, but definitely a step down. We do have our Wi-Fi card hanging out over here. We've got two speakers, which is, again, you know, express card. That's the back end of the CPU. Our CMOS battery. It's really sparse in here. You can see the space that they made for the pen caddy and the mechanism for that to hold it in place right here. And it's got a nice little track to slide into. And of course the keyboard is what helps keep that in place, along with the actual pen clip itself. So if the pen clip itself breaks, you need to replace this piece and probably remove the pen clip component from that. At any rate, this one is definitely a little older, a bit of dust on the inside. We do have an expansion slot up here, and I'm not 100% sure what that's for. That's probably your WWAN card, looking at the wires tucked away in here. And then we've also got this slot in here. No, that's probably going to be your WWAN, so I'm not too sure what this expansion card slot might be for, but I don't recall seeing that on the other model. So that's kind of interesting that that's going on up there. Other than that, everything is very easily accessible. They've definitely had to move a few things around to make way for things like the pen, the battery compartment, of course, has to shove everything down, so things had to be rearranged. So a lot of these parts are probably still interchangeable with the regular series, but I can also see from the inside that some of these are going to be proprietary to the tablet unit. So with that being said, let's go ahead and reassemble and see how it runs. Alright, let's power this fellow up and see what it can do. So as you can see, we got two indicator lights saying that the battery is good to go and that it's plugged in. We'll turn it on and all the lights flash up. Well, kidding, not all of them. And I have to say, in terms of a ThinkPad, this panel looks pretty nice. It probably has to do with it being a touch screen. The technology is probably a little bit different. So one thing worth noting is that you have no touch input with your finger. You actually, at least on this one, do require the pen to get any sort of touch input. So do keep that in mind, that it's not the touch screen that you're necessarily used to. However, the included pen doesn't really leave you wanting in terms of any features. Erase still works. Right click. Of course, you have no real sensitivity. It's either on or off, but with this kind of technology, that's kind of to be expected. But it works. Now let's take a look at some of these features here. So this here has nothing to do with stopping this from rotating. It just stops this button from being pressed. And it's like literally a physical piece of plastic that's getting shoved underneath the button to stop it from powering on and off. Over here we have a couple of rotation buttons, it seems, but I don't know if these will actually do anything outside of the screen actually being rotated, or maybe they require specific drivers that aren't on this particular unit. So let's go ahead and convert this into tablet mode and just adjust our camera. Alright, so just a quick little addendum to this video. I had some help from an awesome gentleman by the name of Gareth Roberts over on Twitter, who gave me a couple of places to look for drivers for this thing, and I have been quite successful. So our touch buttons along the bottom are actually working now, and I was able to confirm that this panel is one of the lower end panels that supports pen only. There were two multi-touch panels that I've referenced earlier in the video. Those are the only ones that would actually work with finger touch from what I understand. So if you are looking for one of these, there's a lot to know about what panels you need and whether or not the pen being missing is actually something you need to consider when it comes to, say, the price and the condition of the unit. Because if you don't have this pen, the touch panel functionality is rendered entirely useless. So with regards to the buttons along the bottom, we have a power button. This button right here is actually a security manager, and you can customize that button. This obviously rotates the screen, so depending on how you are using the tablet portion, the screen rotates 90 degrees to the left with every button press. There is no accelerometer built in to the unit anywhere, so you're doing it old school. This button over here opens up your settings menu, so you can configure the pen and single touch support, which goes just to let us know that we do not have the multi-touch display. We can choose in the options menu here for the different kinds of buttons, and there's just right and left-handed controls. Other than that, our final button is again configurable, so this is for different settings, and again we can configure the different buttons to do different tasks. So that is one thing worth pointing out: the pen touch functionality does not seem to rotate. So even though the screen rotates, the pen input looks like it needs another driver yet still. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in typical troubleshooting fashion, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If you happen to know any way to get the hardware rotation of the screen working properly, I know that I would certainly like to know, and I'm sure there are many others in the comments down below. I'm also curious to know if this performs better on a Linux distribution. Are these problems pretty much eliminated due to different driver support? Again, please let me know down in the comments if there is a preferred way of running this unit in 2018. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you are enjoying your holidays, and like all other videos that I produce, please make sure that you are liking them if they are indeed something that you found useful. And of course, if you think they're very useful, maybe consider sharing them and hitting that subscribe button down there. And then you'll be notified if you click the notification bell when I release a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.